2 wars in 48 hours. You heard that right. 2 wars in 48 hours. And no Epstein arrests. The Ayatollah's dead. So we invaded Iran. We took out the Ayatollah. Full-fledged war in the Middle East. I see nothing but explosions in my feeds and different reels of military vehicles and personnel. Business as usual. And the killing fields are plentiful. The flip side is I do think that some people are waking up after all. I think it took the Iran war to do that. I think that it took taking out the Ayatollah to do that. For everybody to really wake up and realize that this is a uni-party, like I've been saying, dictated by a special interest, and foreign influence. And now we see the shift of the Overton window. What do I mean by that? I mean, what was absurd 5 years ago in me coming online and saying all this is now actually what everybody's coming to realize, is that both sides of the aisle answer to the same master without even getting too specific. So we took out the Ayatollah. We're probably going to put in whatever Rothschild Zio puppet we need to next. It'll be somebody that plays ball with the international community and its attempt to destroy national sovereignty worldwide. So this whole thing is going. It's not stopping, and people's true nature is showing. And yeah, I see the usual suspects, sharing memes about, dead Ayatollahs and this, that, and the other. I'm just going to go ahead and say that an Iranian never called me a goy. And I will say this, that my future kids will not be dying for Israel, and they will not be going to war for Israel. I'm just saying that now. I'm not going to destroy my life and my country for Israel. Because oddly enough, the United States military personnel has been told that this whole escalation in the Middle East is the next battle for Armageddon and the second coming of Jesus. And this was legitimately on record, and it was told to military personnel. So I don't really know what's going on here, but I know that we took out the Ayatollah, 2 wars in 48 hours to cover up the Epstein files. On February 19th, Prince Andrew was arrested. February 24th, Bill Gates apologizes for his Epstein affiliations. And not 4 days later, OpenAI lands a contract with the United States military. And who owns a large portion of OpenAI? Bill Gates. So he apologized for Epstein lies on a Tuesday, and by Friday, he lands a military contract. And there was a gentleman that made a video about all this. He broke it down much better than I did. But OpenAI, Palantir, and the increased surveillance state. I don't think that there is such a thing as privacy anymore. So weaponized surveillance. We kidnapped Maduro. Now we took out the Ayatollah. People are finally waking up in the midst of all this. But, Afghanistan invaded Pakistan with the weapons that we left there when we pulled out. Remember that disastrous exit under the Biden administration? They used those weapons to invade Pakistan. So now we literally just caused 2 wars in 48 hours, and the Epstein et al. Gang is still walking around. I mean, this is at this point, it's like I'm not even mad because I feel like this is some kind of a strange simulation and everybody like has a role and predestination is real. And that this is all just like some kind of a movie where we could sort of control what we do and say and decisions, but in the end, it was like some weird simulation. And because right now, this is like Marvel, this is like we're living in like a DC evil genius Marvel movie. Like this is like cartoonish evil. We have, so a lot of boomers and Republicans make the argument, we haven't been to war in 20 years. These are all just military operations. That's the biggest load of crap I've ever heard. We've been bombing densely populated neighborhoods in the Middle East for the last 20 years. Yeah, no, they weren't military operations. We took out HVTs, high value targets, granted, but it wasn't without the taking of 200 civilian lives in the process using a Predator drone. What they'll say is these spooks, they'll say, yeah, well, that person was number 2 in Al-Shabaab and we took them out. And it's a good thing they're no longer here, but they like literally blew up an entire bazaar with like women and children and innocent shopkeepers. And that's what's been going on for the last 20 years with your taxpayer dollars. Well, boomers finger wag you about how we've never actually been to war. And these are military operations. See, George Carlin talked a lot about soft language and euphemisms. We have now graduated from sectarian rivalries or vest pocket wars. Now we're at this stage where we're updating our terminology. I told you that we would just change the name of things, right? We were the DoD, Department of Defense. Now we're the Department of War. Recent images are going around circulating of apparently what appears to be an angry Donald Trump yelling at Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of War, in what was a dispute over intelligence likely provided from the Israeli Mossad, relevant to the recent attack in Iran. Because, like I said, this military operation that we just conducted was actually just it was Israel that took the lead on it. We were co-opting it and really just facilitating what were their operations. And now we see that we're terraforming the Middle East into a quasi greater Israel, super America, New World Order state in which Palantir will control everything. We bomb densely populated areas in Iran filled with women and children. Somebody like Peter Thiel, who is the head of Palantir, lectures you about the Antichrist and about anti-Semitism. Oh, I'm not joking. I'm not making that up. I'm also not making up the fact that they have a directed energy weapon called a global obliteration yield beam, a GOI beam. They literally have a GOI beam. So just saying, Donald Trump was yelling at the Secretary of War in what he thought was behind closed doors. Apparently the DC paparazzi got a pretty good shot. So it looks like whatever the president is involved in, as far as Israel and a greater Middle East is concerned, it looks like it is like involuntary, whatever this is. And it may be that he's making all these shots against his better judgment. And that begs the question, well, why? Why? So we're mercilessly attacking the Middle East, and we're attacking a nation that is virtually harmless to us with respect to all the technology we have. We have directed energy weapons that could literally take out somebody's ability to even operate a weapons system, much less defend their own sense of democracy. So, it's a ridiculous idea for us to think that we're going to change the names of things, and that's just going to make everything better. And we're going to have a commander-in-chief that's supposed to be acting on the best interest of the American people, who appears to be crashing out behind closed doors over what was probably bad intel. And, you know, we're also worried about a nation who has a latent nuclear program at best run by civilians, which we could obliterate before it even got. We would know if they truly built a nuclear weapon with all the satellite technology that we have. We could literally see up a mouse's ass with a satellite. We probably had that technology like 20 years ago, by the way. Anything that you think that we have, we probably have it times 20. So going back to the Iran situation, I really am not trying to be the guy that said I told you so, but I told you that we would pretty much be at war with Iran like in the not so distant future, about 2 days prior to my last video. And now we see people, I see like regular soccer moms crashing out over Bibi Netanyahu. It's wonderful. It's actually a great thing to see. I'm making friends with all these people that I don't really even know, and they're worldwide, and we are all just coming to the general consensus that the United States is beholden to a bloodthirsty nation state hell-bent on the ethnocentric idea that nobody else has the right to exist in their land. So it's like a very scary time, but it's also very exhilarating to see people who would not ordinarily engage in these kind of topics go full-fledged online and begin to question the historical narratives that we were spoon-fed, to go online and to begin to stand up and say, hey, wait a minute, we have all been lied to. Hey, wait a minute, that doesn't look right. And it's a breath of fresh air in a sea of propaganda and people falling for it. You know, people like Benny Johnson and what is it, DC Drano, and they're all like major disappointments, man. They're continuing to carry water for this administration as though we didn't just start 2 wars to magically further bury the Epstein fiasco. And they're talking about how Trump is like a G, he's a G, like he's hood, bro. It's like he owes 2 baby mamas alimony, but he's popping shots at 2 different countries, and he's got like the gold grills and like the bandana, and like people think this is actually funny. This is like major goy slop. And I'll tell you why that's goy slop. Now they're mythologizing Trump as like a white N-word in the cool sense. And what have we been talking about in my past few videos? Who produces all the gangster rap and told you that it's cool to rob, loot, shoot, steal, sell drugs, and light up your block, right? And now they took that same programming and they put it into the whole Trumpian gangsta, Mr. America, and then it was mixed in with the TPUSA drink, the Christian nationalism, and the Kid Rock, and then the Erica. See, it was all introduced to you in such an odious way. It could not have lacked any more tact than it could have. But what I saw out of this administration, starting with the binders on that law, and I knew that we were in for a long ride. But people's true nature it has come out for all to see. We see the people who continuously put on the pom-poms for pedophilic Talmudic genocide, and then we see people who are actually, putting themselves out there and beginning to question Zion's supremacy and the reign of Bibi Netanyahu in what he feels to be an inevitable greater Israel through the eradication of Palestine. It's a reprehensible notion. And these were the same people that lectured you about the Holocaust and about genocide and about the ideologies and the geopolitical pathologies within a given culture that would lead to something like the creation of an Adolf Hitler. These were the people who spent all this time talking to you about the dangers of misinformation. In other words, noticing. These were the same people who engaged in atrocious behavior on an island in which children went and were never seen again. Like I said, I think that we're living in a DC Genius Marvel comic in which we're in Gotham and there is no real Batman coming to rescue us. You either be a Joker or you perish. That I like we're entering into Mad Max, because now that we have attacked Iran, their most prominent mosques have that red flag of revenge. And Trump offered a ceasefire deal. And guess what Iran said to the Trump administration when they offered a ceasefire deal after they were done bombing women and children? Oh yeah, I'm guessing you all think that went over well, and that this was just a military operation and this wasn't really a war, and that if we took out the Ayatollah, this whole thing would be over in a day. Meanwhile, last night I go on the news, or I watched the snooze, and I see the head of the Nashville Police Department encouraging everybody to lock their doors and to remain vigilant for any possible suspicious activity that could suggest things like sleeper cells in the area. So what happened to this war supposedly being over? Because I'm willing to wager, as a result of what we just did in Iran, there is going to be some kind of horrific reprisal. And that could be something that would make 9/11 look like a joke. I hope that does not happen. God willing, that does not happen. But that seems to be what this administration is driving us to. Because we just, we kidnap Maduro, and we take out the Ayatollah, we take out the leader of a country that virtually posed no real threat to us. And now we bombed their women and children after we got done turning Gaza into a parking lot while taking the dye out of the Doritos and dancing to Stayin' Alive in the YMCA to TikTok jib-jab cutouts of RFK eating celery sticks and curling dumbbells with Kid Rock in a hot tub wearing blue jeans. I mean, like, this is just, it is like satanic, weird, strange, a simulation. Everybody's cartoonishly evil. Very clearly the end times, Elders of Zion prophecy of the red horse being fulfilled. Very scary stuff, by the way, the prophecy of the red horse in the Bible and all that. But the Dow is going down, so somebody might need to tell the Attorney General that now we can talk about the Epstein files now that the stock market is down and now we're no longer getting this money. My goodness gracious. We gotta go full throttle here. And like I said, the big things in life never bothered me. It's the little things that bother me. And I reflected a lot in recent days about my time living in Southwest Florida. And I left Boston, discontinued my studies at the University of Massachusetts, Boston, where I was a pre-law major and a marketing minor. And due to a set of grim personal circumstances regarding family and my financial situation, I ended up living, I went from going to school and living in Boston to living in Lowell, Massachusetts. For those of you who don't know, Lowell is the place where the Industrial Revolution basically took place with the textile mills and all of that. You might have read about that in your history textbooks in school. That for the most part was at least true. But the textile mills, Lowell, Massachusetts, it was where the industrial boom took place, like all those mills. And now it's a rundown dope town, and it's called basically the drop zone because there's only two places getting dropped in Lowell, and that's either dope or bodies. So I ended up, living in Lowell, Massachusetts, which is not only a very dangerous place, Appleton Street. I was staying in transitional housing there, and it was freezing. I was doing snow removal. I was making great money. I was able to pay my own way, whatever. But the cost of living in Lowell, Massachusetts was like for the danger and the blizzards and the crummy standards of living. I went to Florida, right? I left with $1,000 and a backpack full of clothes and a one-way ticket to Fort Myers International. And I began things all over again. And, I went and I worked and I saved up money and unfortunately, I lived in a part of Florida that wasn't exactly included in the vacation brochure, so to speak. This was a neighborhood that was like a federally census designated neighborhood, like basically the last ditch effort type of housing. It was an infamous neighborhood in Fort Myers, and I was there on my own, basically having to rediscover the world. This was in 2018. It was a neighborhood known as Pine Manor, aka Crime Manor. Real interesting place. And it was more dangerous than Lowell, I will wager. But the catch is that it was warmer, so that in the event that I no longer had housing, even in that situation, I would at the very least be warm sleeping outside, hoping a rattlesnake doesn't bite me in the cojones. But I lived in this horrible neighborhood. I learned a lot of very valuable lessons in life about human nature and about family and about loyalty and respect in terms of like family relationships and being there for one another. Well, I ended up all on my own, long story short, early 20s. And my neighbors happened to be members of an organization known as the Latin Kings. And I remember being at odds with my now deceased father. And, during the holidays, I had nobody to hang out with. My mother passed away when I was 14 in 2007, right in the housing market crash. My house was also being foreclosed upon. So I was living there, long story short, and, my own family didn't even come around on the holidays to at least, bring me some McDonald's or cigarettes or something. But, the Latin Kings, they invited me into their house on Christmas. They actually knew that I didn't like my dad. I don't know how, they just knew. They knew I was like this guy that just was having a rough time in life. So they were like, "Toma." And I was like, "What?" I don't know. I think that means come here in Spanish or whatever. So I ate dinner with the Latin Kings on Christmas before I ever actually got to really experience what true family was. And that actually contributed to what is now my understanding of geopolitics, we'll go start 2 wars and blow up other countries and kill women and children before we ever release information that would lead to the subsequent arrest of evil, disgusting people who did horrible things to kids. You know, I want peace, so therefore I prepare for war. Because that is like the essence of human nature right there. Who you think is actually your family is your enemies, and vice versa. And that goes back to me, like I said, meeting all these people through noticing what's going on in this country. That's sort of what's bringing me like a sense of connection to my fellow human being. Because human nature, I have got to say, it is ugly as the day is long. And I venture to say that I've experienced some of the more horrific sides of human nature, which is one of the other reasons why I come on here and raise awareness about child sex trafficking and this cabal that seems to have a chokehold over the entire world. Because when I was living in Pine Manor, aka Crime Manor in Fort Myers, Florida, I had a decision to make. It was sink or swim. And I had to work 3 jobs to keep the lights on. I had to learn about hard work and respect and understand that not everybody's for you, and that not only that, there's people that would love to see you dead. There's people that would love to see your downfall. And you know, that's something that actually encouraged me. That actually made me want to push forward. It wasn't necessarily the idea of ever getting rich. It wasn't ever necessarily the idea of obtaining a high social status. I just kept going because I knew that the opposition out there in this world is ugly and it's disgusting, and it should be crushed. You know, culturally, socially, economically, politically, needs to be crushed. And like I said, when I was a kid, I didn't have the vocabulary for what I noticed in the world about human nature, politics, culture. This is it, you know. And it even says it in the book written by the man upstairs, that your own family will come against you. The people who are the closest to you will come against you. And doesn't that hit home for all of us who did vote for who we voted for? We all thought that you know, that was going to be the most legendary presidency that we were ever going to have, and he was going to take on this father-like didactic figure that was going to dictate in a very strong patriarchal populist sense what true American identity looks like. And here we are capitulating to the New World Order and Bibi Netanyahu and who he wants to bomb today. And concealing files implicating the most powerful people in the world doing the most reprehensible things to women and children. It wasn't just kids. It was a lot of people. It wasn't just sex trafficking. It was labor trafficking too. It was all of it. And you got this guy who we know for a fact is evil incarnate, apologizing for his Epstein ties, and by Friday landing the biggest military contracts in the history of his career. A guy, Bill Gates, who likely has done all these other horrible things involving these shots and these chemicals and he's banned in all these other countries, yet he's allowed to walk around here scot-free and openly do business with your military. He's like, if he lands in Africa, he gets arrested. And the same goes for Bibi Netanyahu. If he lands in certain countries, he immediately will be arrested for war crimes. So you tell me who really is the extremist here, because CNN wants to go on a Sunday special and talk to you all about the dangers of Christian nationalism and Christian extremism and the dangers of American right-wing populism and the dangers of wanting to put your own country before a foreign occupied, a foreign invader. Because right now we're occupied. Stu Peters is supposedly coming out with a great documentary this fall called Occupied, and it is going to, in great detail, describe to us, probably better than the documentary Europa will, about what exactly is going on in the United States of America and also the world. Because when you start 2 wars in 48 hours, well, people are demanding accountability for the Epstein files, you know that, like, end game is close. Well, the military's being told that this is like the battle for Armageddon. And it sounds corny, but, you know, this is why I put down the drugs, the alcohol, and I try to every day improve as an individual. And I've done a lot of very bad things in my life and things that I'm really not proud of. And I try to really, like, be better from that each and every day, because this is, like, scaring me straight. Like, this has gotten me shook. Because, like, when have you ever heard a day where the military tells each other that this is the final battle for Armageddon, as though that was, like, normal information to go with your breakfast MRE? You know? And while we're on that topic, this isn't to smash anybody who has, but I'm so glad I did not get into the United States military. Holy crap. I am so glad I did not get into the military, because if I was, like, batting around the idea of dying for this horse shit, I would be so miserable to go die for Jeffrey Epstein's best friends in a blackmailed administration in which the president is crashing out behind closed doors on the Secretary of War. Well, we're supposedly installing democracy in Iran. Well, all the most prominent Muslim mosques in the world are now raising the red flag of, like, revenge. It's like a call to, like, revenge. Like, I'm not calling that so they don't misclip me. They're calling for revenge because of what the United States did in Iran. Because we took out the Ayatollah, all the most prominent mosques in the world are putting up the red flag. And usually when they're mad and they do stuff like that, they mean business. See, the other thing is I'm not like someone who wants to come online and just, like, trash the Jews all the time. I know a lot of Jewish people who actually agree with my perspective on what I'm talking about here in 2026, you know. But I also recognize that there is these extremist caliphate people. I mean, yeah, like, if they don't realize they're, like, the rabbit holes we've gone down in terms of controlled opposition, if they're just someone who's wants to do that, and if you want to bring that to my backyard, then obviously I'm going to multitask in defending myself against, like, some Sharia psychopath. Okay? Just so that we're clear, I can multitask here. I can understand that there's a psychotic ethno-nationalist Zio state looking to establish a third seal for Greater Israel, while at the same time they're getting what they want. Oh yeah, Israel's also getting what they want in pissing off the Muslims, because now they know that whatever happens here next in America, as far as that's concerned, that's going to line Bibi's pockets. And it's just going to feed into this endless occupation of the Middle East. Because we've been in the Middle East since I was in, like, the 3rd grade. I think the 2nd grade we weren't in the Middle East. And I think that was, like, the last year before everything really started to get bad. Before I really started, as a little boy, looked out into the world and asked myself, do I really want anything to do with this crazy place? But yeah, I made friends with the Latin kings before my own family ever could be anything decent to me. In the same way, we will go start 2 wars in 48 hours before we'll ever see justice in arrests of people who did horrible things to kids. That is just like full circle human nature right there. That is a full circle Hard Knocks lesson, but lesson well learned, because I'm going to be a bad guy. I'm going to be a bad guy to the bitter end, and I'm not dying for a nation state that has my country's administration hostage. I don't care. I'm not dying for Israel. And, I know that there's a lot of men and women in the military right now that are standing up to this, that do see what I see and would agree with everything that I'm saying right now. And some of them are being arrested. There are a lot of U.S. military personnel right now that agree with my perspective in 2026. There are a lot of people who happen to be Jewish that agree with my perspective in 2026, because it is really not that hard to establish that there is an organized cabal dictated by special interests that is controlling every aspect of our lives, almost down to a scary microscopic level. And, I encourage everybody to just become the best person that you can possibly be. Because I also do have some friends that work inside parts of the government. And they have told me in the past, after signing NDAs, that I should work on becoming the greatest possible person that I could be. And they were also telling me how they're going to get baptized the second that they get out of the military. And that's all they really had to say to me, and I haven't heard from them since. And this was like in 2022. And it was, somebody who was a friend of mine. He was high up in the military, special ops guy. He told me some of the things that he learned and some of the things that he saw. He said to me, I swear on my mother that he's going to get baptized when he gets out of the military. And that he said that he had to sign non-disclosure agreements, an NDA. He had to sign NDAs, and he was not allowed to talk to me what he wanted to talk to me about. And I don't know where he is. I hope he's safe. But I swear on my mother's grave that a friend of mine who was special ops in 2022, when I was doing these podcasts, and I was trying to get information about what was going on in the world, I caught up with him, and he told me that I need to work on becoming a better person, and that he's going to get baptized when he gets out of the military. And this was like after he went to some facility, some undisclosed location that he couldn't tell me. All he could tell me is that it was subterranean. That was the term he used, subterranean. Sub means beneath. Terrain is the ground, so underground. What have we been talking about? Like these underground facilities where these kids go, Zorro Ranch. I mean, it's like I almost have like an empirically confirming fact that there is an entire world underground in which all the most atrocious things go on. They have maglev trains that go underground, that go Mach 5. And you can go from New York to London in 3 hours. It goes underneath the English Channel. They have tunnels underneath the ocean. They have fiber optic cables that connect to other countries. What makes you think they don't have infrastructure like that? They do. Like I said, anything that you think that they might have technologically speaking, they probably have that times 10. Like I said, we were creating monsoons. We were creating weather storms in the Vietnam War to flood the Ho Chi Minh Trail. And that was confirmed by a famous meteorology professor at Stanford, a renowned however you say that word, a renowned professor at Stanford confirmed that we can control the weather. We have directed energy weapons that likely melted Hawaii after The Rock and Oprah went online and begged you all for donations. Well, all their estimators and it came around and bought up all the property. Furthermore, we have disturbing news to end on this. Apparently, there's videos circulating right now of Whoopi Goldberg on camera eating a child's brain. You heard that right. Whoopi Goldberg, apparently in the Epstein files, is on camera eating a child's brain. As if the whole rumor about Uma Aberdeen and Hillary Clinton wearing a child's face wasn't bad enough. Like I said, rumors, hearsay, don't censor me. If that is true, and those are the kind of people that are walking amongst us, that is disturbing. This is bad. Whoopi Goldberg supposedly eating a child's brain. And we won't even get an arrest for that, but we'll go make sure that we secure the IMEC corridor and the Beltway initiative. We'll go make sure that we rape other countries for natural resources while bombing densely populated civilian areas for supposed notions of democracy before we'll ever see somebody like that be slapped in handcuffs. My goodness gracious. That was the first thing that I saw today when I was pouring my Lucky Charms protein cereal. I see that Whoopi Goldberg allegedly is in a video in the Epstein files eating a child's brain. That was how I started my day, pouring my Lucky Charms Ghost protein cereal. So, 2 wars in 48 hours, no Epstein arrests. People are waking up per the Iran war. The Overton window, thank you God, is shifting, and there's soccer moms that are crashing out about Bibi Netanyahu and his bloodthirsty Napoleonic foreign policy. We have Bill Gates landing military contracts after all he had to do was apologize for his blatant Epstein ties. CNN wants to tell you all about the dangers of American populist Christian nationalism. Human nature sucks, especially your own family and the people closest to you. And presidents that we voted for end up capitulating to what is likely the Antichrist regime being spoon-fed to us in the form of TPUSA. This is a circus. This is a dumpster fire. Cue the circus music. Put a fork in it. America is cooked. Look, I'm a true patriot. I love this country. I would be the first to vote if our elections were actually trustworthy. I would be the first to trust the experts if the experts weren't lying, psychotic, crazy pedophiles that actually wanted to improve human health and the overall quality of life and culture. I would do those things if we did not exist in a system like this. What I've asked for is very patriotic and American. It is to prioritize Americans and Americans first, and to not go blow up other countries, 2 of them in 48 hours, because Americans demanded basic accountability for atrocities and treason, I might add. But I don't know if we'll even have a country tomorrow, because I see lots of military aircraft in the sky. I see videos of masses of Chinooks and CH-47s or whatever flying in formation over little old Arkansas and Pennsylvania and Iowa and Minnesota and Dakota, parts of Texas. of course. So you know something's coming down the pipeline, because when the Overton window shifts, what is the Overton window? For people who don't know, the Overton window is when it is when policy shifts to the point in which it's absurd. In other words, what was once an agreeable idea over time becomes absurd with respect to the changing geopolitical, cultural, and social theaters of a given first world civilization. So it's basically when an idea goes from being legit to becoming illegitimate. So like the idea, like public policy, for instance, over time, a government adopts a policy, and over time, people realize it sucks, like DEI, like the Overton window shifts. At first, we thought that DEI was going to harmonize human nature and togetherness and all that. And in the end, we have tent cities and people defecating on the subway while they put needles in their arm, wiping their butt with the New York Times, smelling of urine. That's DEI. That's the Overton window. The Overton window shifting is people realizing how absurd DEI and all the woke stuff was. And now the Overton window is shifting in the sense that people, whether they're right or left, realize that our foreign policy is demonstrable, to say the least. So the Overton window is shifting. So that's a good thing. I know I'm like, primarily what I talk about on here is negative. I mean, it's par for the course in 2026 with everything that's going on. But that's the positive news, is that I see people, like even people I went to like high school with, and people that I grew up around, that I don't think in a million years would ever engage in political dialogue of any kind. And now they're going online and saying, hey, I don't like what we're actually doing on behalf of a nation state that seems to have intelligence services that have, over the past 30 to 60 years, have penetrated Western civilization in order to erode it using cultural Marxism so as to destroy its sovereignty as a means by which to introduce a one world government. So this isn't looking good, but I'm optimistic. I think that the American people are waking up. I think that many men and women within our military are waking up. I know that there's going to be people in the military that do not wake up, and they're just there because they want to get a thrill out of going to war. Those people scare me, by the way, because that's a cowardly mentality, to simply want to join the services because you just want to simply take a life. You know, and unfortunately, we have people in the military that are that way. Like some of them are these rough people that come from horrible parts of the country that didn't really have anything else going on for them, and they just basically want an excuse to go be violent. And those are the people that perpetuate dark history, the dark history that we are doomed to repeat. Because over time, I realized that the strongest men don't actually want war. Even men who have been to war in an ideal world don't want war, because I would wager to say that men who have actually gone to war and have actually been downrange and in actual firefights, and not just some indirect attachment, or you just heard pot shots for 5 minutes and you called that seeing the stuff. I'm talking about for guys who have like literally like been blown or seen people blown up right in front of them and shot in like actual combat. Like those people like will be the first to tell you that war is horrible. There's nothing cool about it. And I would venture to say that that's probably true. We think, when we think of war, we think it's like bombastic and theatrical, and no, war is basically like a young kid blowing themselves up to get at you because they were radicalized by an ideology, you know. Strong men don't want war. Real men don't join the military simply so that they can one day at a tavern say that they've killed someone. Because I wanted to join the United States Marine Corps to actually do what I feel was protecting women and children from monsters going into villages and hacking them up. But instead we guard poppy fields and make sure that oil companies make their nut. So like I said, and we also allow Epstein's best friends to land contracts with our military. So yeah, I'm glad I never got in. Real men, even if they have been to war and have been in the military, I will be the first to tell you that they do not want these wars. They want all these wars to end because they likely have friends who are over there. And I guarantee you they agree with me, and they want this military home, and they want this country focused on the American people. And I know a lot of people out there that would otherwise be diametrically opposed to everything about me that happen to probably be agreeing with me right now. But with that being said, I think I'm going to go make myself dinner now. Hopefully we don't go start another war while I make my way to the kitchen. So I'm going to very calmly, go now, and I'm going to go make dinner, and hopefully we don't start a coup or another bloody regime change while I go and see what I'd like for dinner. But I'm not dying for Israel, neither should you.